Hey folks, Doug Lake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to answer a question about deltoid training because I do have students that ask me consistently about, specific body parts, and in the case of the how to train them. And in the case of the deltoids, is it necessary to train all three heads, right? The anterior, lateral, and rear head of the deltoid. So the question basically is asked like this: should I be doing or training my rear deltoids? Because most folks know that if you're training your pecs sufficiently enough, then your anterior deltoid, for instance, gets more than enough, excuse me, stimulation, right, from doing your chest presses, things like that. So the anterior delt gets a fair amount. You're doing shoulder presses anyway. Anterior delt apparently gets a fair amount of stimulation, so it's not really necessary. And then generally you're doing lateral raises, so you're getting the lateral head. And then that's the big question: should I train my rear deltoids? And so the question again comes out: do I need to train all three heads sort of separately? Now, remember, I'm doing bench press and presses. So the general understanding is that without even thinking about it, I'm getting at least two of the three heads working. And the reality is that, well, no, actually, all three heads work irrespective of the type of training you're doing. It's simply a question of how much stimulation are all three heads receiving. So for instance, yes, even when I do an anterior or front raise, right? Do I front lateral raises, and you are definitely going to get a tremendous amount of stress placed on the anterior deltoid. Well, yeah, believe it or not, you still get stress on the lateral head of the deltoid. And yes, the rear head of the deltoid is also involved, but it's minimal. So the idea with the deltoid is to understand that, do you need to work all three heads separately, like do rear deltoids, side lateral raises, and then anterior deltoids? And the answer is no, not necessarily. But is there a problem if you do that and throw that into a workout with your clients? Absolutely not. Generally, the way I recommend you do it is that since you're already, I hope, already doing your training in such a way that you're doing your chest, say your shoulders and your triceps on one day. So you're training your chest. Anytime you do any pushing type of movement, pressing movement with dumbbells or a bar, your anterior deltoids, obviously, and the lateral head of the deltoid are significantly stimulated. The deltoids are that type of muscle. They're basically involved with anything we do with the upper body to a certain extent. Okay. So if you're training your back, right, correctly, and you're doing rowing movement, well, for sure, the rear deltoid receives a fair amount of stimulation, depending on the level or position of abduction that the shoulder is in. If I do rows with my elbows in an adducted shoulder adducted position, well, yeah, there's minimal activity in the rear deltoid. But as soon as I take that bar and maybe go into a pronated grip, I do rows like this. So if you do rows with a pronated grip and the elbow abducts, you're going to get a significant level of rear deltoid activity in there as well. So should you do, generally the question is lateral raises. Should I do anterior lateral raises and do side laterals and do rear deltoid lateral raises? And the answer is sure. Is it necessary? No, because once again, by training the larger muscle groups, the pectoralis and the lats and the trapezius, generally those compound movements where the elbows are flexing and extending, right, with rows and bench presses, in general, the stimulation on all of the heads of the deltoid is going to be significant enough to where it would not be necessary. Now, I'm talking about an average client who is not getting on stage and worried about what they look like in a rear double bicep. Obviously, if you are training athletes and you are training bodybuilders, for instance, then for sure you're trying to train pretty much every part of a muscle that you can, to ensure that you get enough stimulation and volume to hypertrophy those muscles, particularly something like the rear deltoid. So in that case, it's actually significantly important. But for the average client that's training with you a couple of days a week, that's trying to lose body fat and just get into shape and become more fit, the answer to the question is, unless you have time to do it, and throw it in like a superset or a tri-set giant set, right? Where you do one set of laterals and without rest, you go right into anterior, and without any rest, go right into rear delt, lean forward and do rear. Sure, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Is it going to make a significant difference in that average client? Probably not. So just keep that in mind. If you're thinking about doing it, sure, throw some rear deltoid work in there. In some cases, it's actually nice to do because it's different, and your clients might appreciate that as well. So I hope this video was helpful. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and let me know if this was a helpful video, even though it was short, by writing the word understood in that comment section as well. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Every Wednesday night, we do a Quizlet live study. So if you're interested in coming on board at 6 p.m. Eastern time, 6 to 6:30, please do that. It's going to be in the Facebook group where you can go and catch that link as well. As always, have a great week. We'll see you next week.